Thank you, guys. I am really looking forward to Christmas. Amen. I have been searching through the Bible in preparation for Christmas, and I have not yet found any reason why we should get gifts for each other. Sorry, kids. But I'm going to read a passage from Isaiah chapter 9, because there is every reason in the Bible to show that God has really good gifts for us this Christmas. As I prepare to read Isaiah 9, 2 through 7, our passage this morning, I want to ask that while I'm reading that, I'm going to need some help. I need 10 volunteers. Let's go high school and up this week. 10 volunteers to line up here, and I want each of you to grab a name. It's not hard. You're going to be statues. You're going to hold a name. So it's going to be very easy. 10 volunteers. Isaiah 9, 2 through 7. Here, and grab a name. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shined. You have multiplied the nation. You have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they're glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden, the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you've broken as on the day of Midian. Every boot of the tramping warrior in battle tumult, every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it, to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. Hope is the first gift of Christmas, because it's what you get when you don't have anything else. There is no celebration yet. There are no presents yet. The first gift is hope. And in order to understand hope, like a candle, you have to understand the darkness that is completely around it. So to help us understand the darkness that was around God's people in the days and the years and the decades leading up to Christmas, I have 10 volunteers. Now, what I would like is for people holding green names to stand right here with Salome in the middle. I would like the people with yellow names to stand on the second step with Antipater in the middle. And I would like those with orange names to stand on the top step with Augustus in the middle. We're going to do a little speed history. We're going to do 50 years in 5 minutes to get an idea of what was happening in the days leading up to Christmas. Okay, so here we have a family of Maccabees. The Maccabees led a revolt as the Greek Empire was beginning to disintegrate. The Maccabees led a revolt that brought some level of independence back to Israel. Well, Salome married the grandson of Judas Maccabeus, and she became queen. Now, after a year, her husband died. Cause of death unknown. And the guy was a little bit paranoid. He had locked his brothers in prison. So when Salome's husband died, she freed his brothers from prison and she married the next oldest brother and became queen again. Well, they had 2 sons. So let's see. Over here, we have Hyrcan, the oldest son, and Aristobulus. 2 sons. Eventually, Salome's second husband dies, and instead she decides she doesn't even need to marry the third brother. She'll just stay queen of Israel anyway. She places Hyrcan as the high priest. And they completely remake the Sanhedrin. This is the religious council that governed a lot of Israel. And Aristobulus became head of the army. Eventually, as Salome is dying, she makes Hyrcan the next king. Okay, so Salome dies, probably naturally. We don't know. So Hyrcan is high priest, and he's now king. But he's not very popular. So
Perfect.
Aristobulus says, wait a minute, the people of Israel really like me, and I have an army, and you don't. So he goes to siege Israel. Everyone say, siege Israel. Siege Jerusalem. And Hyrcan says, well, you know, I didn't really want to be king anyway. So Aristobulus becomes the king of Israel. Enter Antipater. Now, you're going to have to wait, sir. Antipater was a political advisor. This family was not Jewish. They were Idumean. That means they were people from Edom. Antipater was a political advisor, and it helps me to picture Jafar. Maybe that will help you. Yes. And Antipater goes to Hyrcan and says, now wait a minute, that crown actually belongs to you. You are the rightful king of Israel. I have some connections in the Arab world, and if you're interested, I can bring an Arab army in and make you king. And Hyrcan says, yes, Antipater Jafar, as you wish. So Antipater brings an army of Arabs, and guess what? They siege Jerusalem. Everyone say, siege Jerusalem. Siege Jerusalem. Aristobulus is completely surprised, and they call for help. Now, while this is happening, in the Roman Empire, Augustus, you're going to have to stand back a little bit because it's not your time, but your time is coming. In the Roman Empire, we have Julius, who is busy conquering Europe, and Pompey, who is busy conquering the Middle East. Well, Pompey hears that there is an Arab army in his territory, and he's not happy about it. So he immediately goes to Israel and chases off the Arab army. And then he looks at these 2 Jewish brothers who are squabbling over the kingdom and says, Israel's now mine. So he takes Aristobulus with him to Rome, and he leaves Hyrcan and Antipater in charge to govern in his absence. Now, eventually, Antipater from afar is able to poison and kill Aristobulus. Sorry, you can have a seat. And Antipater also kills one of his sons. One of his sons, Antigonus, escapes. We'll get to you later. Okay, where are we? Now, Antipater is a very smart fellow, and Hyrcan really is high priest and was never very interested in the kingdom. So more and more Antipater begins to run the kingdom in Israel. And Antipater makes Phasael governor of Jerusalem and Herod governor of Galilee. Now, let's see, what happens next? They are running Israel for Rome, and they're doing a very good job at it. In fact, Herod is so eager to please Rome that he's the very first one to implement Rome's harsh tax system in order to pay for the civil war that Rome is having. Because this is not a friendly rivalry. Julius and Pompey are fighting to lead the Roman Empire. Julius wins. Pompey, you can go have a seat. And Julius becomes Caesar and recognizes what a great job the Antipater family is doing raising taxes. Not only are they raising taxes in order to pay for the civil war that Rome is having, but Herod is also ruthlessly pursuing Jewish rebels and executing them. He's doing such a good job that the Sanhedrin back in Jerusalem wants to bring criminal charges against him. Herod doesn't really like that, so he marches into the temple, into the meeting of the Sanhedrin with armed guards, and he says, "What are you going to do about it?" And Hyrcanus says, "Well, that's Antipater's son. We're going to do nothing." Eventually, let's see. No, not yet. Okay, it's hard to keep track of all these pieces. Eventually, let's see. Antipater. Okay, let's do Antigonus. Antigonus is able to go away. Remember, his father and his brother were killed by Antipater. Antipater eventually dies. Cause of death unknown. You can have a seat. And Antigonus uses this as a chance, and he invites these three to a meeting. Herod doesn't go. Phasael and Hyrcanus go to a meeting, which is actually a trap. And Antigonus kills Phasael. Apologies. Hyrcanus is actually his uncle. So instead of killing him, he just cuts off his ear so that he can't be high priest anymore. So now you have no role in the kingdom at all. And Herod runs away. First he goes to Egypt looking for Antony. Antony's not there, so he has to go to Rome, where he meets a fellow named Antony and Octavian. By the way, Julius was killed by his own Senate. Surprise. Which leaves another partnership of Antony, and there were some other guys. But eventually, Octavian is able to kill all of his enemies and his partners, and he anoints himself as supreme emperor of the Roman Empire. And he changes his name to Augustus Caesar. Well, Herod goes and he meets with all these guys in Rome, and they look at his record and said, "You've been doing an excellent, look at all these taxes you've raised, look at all these rebels you've executed." And they send a Roman army with Herod back to siege Jerusalem. Siege Jerusalem. Herod kills Antigonus. You're gone. But they had a sister. No, not sister. It was Hyrcanus' granddaughter, who is a Maccabee princess. So Herod takes her as a wife. So now he has a real princess bride, which makes him a real king. Right? That lasts long enough for them to have a couple sons. He gets paranoid. He kills his Maccabean wife, and he kills both of their sons.
Dang, Herod.
So over Israel, we are left with King Herod. Augustus Caesar has given him the title, "You are the King of Israel," even though you were never Jewish to begin with. You are King of Israel, and he is supreme emperor of the Roman Empire. That's where we are in the days leading up to Christmas. Thanks, guys. You can have a seat. Now, whether you're a Bible nerd or a fan of Game of Thrones, I hope you really enjoyed that. Because this is what life was like in Israel in the decades leading up to Christmas. This is the chaos and the darkness that they were experiencing. And as they go back to their Old Testament scriptures and look at things like Isaiah, and that said, God, this year for Christmas, is going to give you a king. Merry Christmas. We already have like 6 of them, and they're all broken. A king, what do we need a king for? We've been waiting for 400 years, and we've had a dozen kings, and none of them were any good. What will be good about this king? And the way that Isaiah frames this promise in terms of hope. I want to go through this passage and look, how will this king be different? What does this light that shines in darkness mean? The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Now, if you were Jewish, living in this time or any time, a light shining in darkness is going to remind you of creation. The chaos and the darkness that encompass the entire universe. And in the midst of that, God separates and establishes a light that gives light to the entire universe. Let there be light. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without order. It was covered in darkness. And God said, let there be a light. In their world that was disintegrating beyond human endurance, physically, politically, economically, absolute chaos, God promises them nothing less through this king than recreation. Recreation. I'm going to start everything new.
That's right.
I'm going to shine a brand new light into your world, and I'm going to bring order. I'm going to bring beauty. I'm going to bring authority. I'm going to recreate everything. Hope, this Christmas hope that we have, is based upon God's intention from the very beginning, and again through this new king, his intention to bring order out of chaos and to again make for himself a people in his own image and for his glory. That is his intention. And no matter how deep and how broad the darkness is, he is going to bring his light into it. Whether you are experiencing great exterior darkness in your world, or whether there is a great interior darkness in your heart, God's light can shine into it. That is hope. Amen. Total, complete recreation out of darkness. How is this light going to work? You have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they're glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden, the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor you've broken. Every boot, every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. This light that shines in darkness will bring victory and joy. It says joy 3 times. He's going to establish joy, joy, joy for his people. There's been no reason to hope. There's been no reason to have joy. This light that shines in darkness will reestablish joy. A joy that comes from victory, like they're dividing the spoils. They've just won. This light that shines in darkness will break every yoke. Right? A yoke was for doing work around the neck so that oxen could drag a plow and do agriculture. or the staff on the shoulder so that they could carry heavy loads like in Egypt building the pyramids, carrying buckets of water or clay, or the rod, the billy club that they were beaten with if they didn't work hard enough or fast enough. The yoke, the staff, the billy club, this light in the darkness is going to break in half all of them. Every tool of oppression, every sign of violence, he's going to clean up. And he will establish victory. Keep in mind that these things had not yet happened in Israel. It had been 400 years since they'd even heard from another prophet. Malachi, the last prophet in the Old Testament, that was 400 years ago. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting. When is this new guy going to show up? Because things are pretty bad. This light that shines in darkness was the substance of the hope that they were waiting for. This passage goes on not only to tell us how the light that shines in darkness, what it means and what it will do, but who it will be. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder. His name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed have a child now that I'm too old and worn out?' Is anything too hard for the Lord?" God had promised a child before. To people, to a couple, it was impossible for them to have a child. He promised them a miracle child.
That's right.
Here he promises a child to the entire nation of Israel. I'll give you another miracle child. See, the opposite of hope is despair. When you say, like Sarah did, it's too late for me. It's the absence of hope. It's impossible. It's too late for me. I've messed everything up in my life. Nothing in my life is good. I don't have anybody to help me through this. It's too late. It's too late for hope. It's too late for a miracle. As Mary and Joseph made their way to Bethlehem, nothing in the entire world gave them any reason to hope. They were on their way to Bethlehem to pay taxes again, so that Rome could wage more civil wars. Herod had wiped out the entire royal line of the Maccabees. They'd sent delegations to Caesar to try to say, please give us anybody else to rule Israel except Herod. The entire delegation was executed. There was no reason in the entire world for them to hope. Their families wouldn't even give them a place to stay. They were going to Bethlehem because they were of the line of David. None of their relatives would give them a place to stay. There was no reason to hope. Everything in the whole world was completely dark. Everything good was gone. And it felt like it was too late. Some of us, as we prepare for another Christmas, are still in that kind of deep despair. I just heard an interview on the radio yesterday of someone who lost their son to heroin. They had every resource available, and nothing helped. I have a friend who's 18-year-old daughter has cancer this year. I have another friend who was divorced for the second time. There's a lot of deep despair in our world today. And it feels like it's too late. Maybe you feel like there's a darkness in your life that's completely overwhelming. Maybe you feel like it's too late for you. And I want you to know that this promise of God is for you. He has a special gift for you this Christmas.
That's right.
It is not too late to hope. That's right. He has a gift for you, and it is a child. A child like no other child in all of human history. A miracle child. You see, every other child in human history inherits broken things from his father. We inherit broken economies, broken politics. We inherit alcoholism. We inherit heart problems. We inherit all kinds of broken things from our fathers. This child will inherit nothing broken because he is not of the line of Adam.
That's right.
This is a new child. A new child who has the authority to recreate the entire world.
Yes.
Because nothing he has is broken. With this child, all things are new. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it, to uphold it with justice, with righteousness. From this time forth and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. The true king, the true king of the line of David. King Herod didn't think about wiping out that line. He couldn't find him. A true king, without all of the puppet strings and all of the corruption, all of the manipulation and extortion. How could a Herod have overlooked this surprise? He thought he was secure until one morning, 3 guys with camels. We are here to celebrate with you, the new king of Israel. What? I killed all of them already. Who else do I need to kill? This king will both establish and maintain a brand new kingdom. This government will be on his shoulder. This is an interesting visual because it's not usually used of royalty. Usually a king, there's no scepter in his hand. There's no crown on his head. There's no big throne for him to sit in all day, every day. The government will be on his shoulder, and he will be doing the work of carrying this new society every day. I also heard on the radio this week, they were describing CEOs. And there are 2 types of CEOs. There's builders and there's fixers. There are CEOs who have the integrity and the patience to slowly build a team of people into a company over long periods of time. But when disaster hits, they don't know how to adapt spontaneously. They need a fixer CEO to come in and fix the problem. Well, this king will build a kingdom, and he will be able to maintain it. This light that shines into darkness has the power of a king to bring victory over all of those exterior conditions, and the power of a Savior to bring victory over internal transformation. A theologian named Paul Tillich once said, we have to build a better man before we can build a better society. And this is where all of history's conquerors got it backwards. Because they were able to change the world. They established new societies, but they did it without building new people first. They got it backwards. America, we have, I believe, the best designed governments in all of human history. And it is still not even close to being human-proof. We can still mess it up because we haven't made new people first. Jesus makes new people, and then he builds a new kingdom. He changes from the inside out. This child, this light that shines into darkness, has the power to recreate you.
Amen. Thank you.
He has the strength to break what enslaves you. He has the peace to turn your despair into joy, and the authority to bring you into a new community of justice and love, now and forever.
That's right.
This kingdom will not fall apart because humans can't tear this kingdom apart because he's already transformed them. This child, this light that shines in darkness, who fulfills the promises to Adam, to Moses, to Abraham, and to David, his kingdom will continue to grow and to grow and to grow. To shine because he himself, this king, is eternal, and nothing he has ever been broken. He is our Christmas gift of hope. The one gift we get to open up early because we need it now.
That's right.
In our darkness.
That's true.
I have some homework for your family this week as you begin your Advent journey towards Christmas. The first thing, I would highly recommend that your family go and participate in the Living Nativity this week at the Ben Nazarene Church. That you would go and take their journey into the Bethlehem village that they have set up, and to experience to some degree what their darkness was like that they were living in, and what this new hope really meant to them in that darkness. You'll actually feel Roman oppression as you walk through their village of Bethlehem. The coldness and the darkness, the oppression, you'll feel it. And because you will feel the darkness, you will know what hope really means for Christmas. The second thing I would challenge your family to do is to take a special light. Now, our family has a light that's been around the house. Ooh. This is a star that we have. Now, it's pretty neat that Christmas happens during the darkest part of the year. I don't think that's coincidence. And everybody, no matter what their belief system, is putting lights on their houses. I would really challenge you, don't put your lights on your houses because it's the cultural thing to do. Give it meaning. There is so much meaning to hope in our Christmas. As a family, take one light, whether it's a star, which is perfect, because on Christmas, an actual light, new light shined in darkness to point towards Jesus. Take a light, whether it's a star or a string of lights, make it special as a family. Give it meaning. From now on, I'm going to call this our Hope Star. It's kind of like the Death Star, but it shines beams of hope into our planet. fully operational Hope Star. Take a light and give it the meaning of Christmas. Give it the meaning of hope. This was the first and absolutely necessary gift that God's people needed in their darkness. The last thing I'd like to suggest is that I always hang out after the service to answer questions, and I'm happy to do that. But today, I just want to make myself available and maybe a couple other people who have a lot of experience. If you are going through darkness and nothing, doctors don't give you any hope, politicians don't give you any hope, your family, your relatives don't give you any hope, maybe a child who's run away, like another friend I have whose daughter ran away. You can't find anything in this world that gives you any hope in that situation, for you or for a loved one. Please come and tell me about your darkness. And together we'll look for some hope, and we'll pray and minister to you that God would restore a light in your darkness this Christmas. Thank you, and I just am really excited for Christmas this year, because this is the first of many, many good gifts that our Father has for us. Go in hope.